in the aftermath of Charlie's death, his murder, I should say, we're all coming to realize just how much of a role he was playing in holding back the tide of the conspiratorial, anti-Israel, often anti-Semitic part of the right in America. And can't help but thinking those words in Harry Potter. I'm a devout Harry Potter fan. And as things start to get dark and the clouds start to come over, Hagrid turns to Harry and he says, "There's a storm coming, Harry, and we best be ready when she does." And I can't help but feel that now, in the aftermath, we've now got people going after Israel and Jews from the left, from the Islamic side, and now it looks like there's going to be a serious battle going on the right. I'm not saying all people on the right at all, not at all. There's been so much support that Israel's had from conservatives and that Jews have had. But the concern I see happening now is that this kind of stuff is going to become, it's just going to get out there more. And there's going to be some kind of battle of ideas really here. And the Jews are getting in the middle of it. I mean, the fact that right now Israel and Jews are becoming the center of this story, this tragedy. Forget the on the macro scale, on a personal level, a husband and a father has just been killed. And the fact that you have people who are so close to Charlie and are prepared to start politicizing this, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, or true or not, to start making this about your own agenda, it's quite shocking, to be honest. It's shocking. We all knew people like Candace Owens had this unexplainable obsession with Israel and the Jews. But even in what should be a moment of grief, to spin this again about Israel, it's deranged, but it shouldn't surprise us. It should not surprise us as Jews, because we know that the obsession with the Jewish people and Israel has gone on for thousands of years, and that it exists because this is the fundamental cosmic battle of our world. We just happen to believe Israel are the good guys. They are vessels for God's light and his will, and they're meant to be a blessing to the world. And those who are against that mission will see the Jews as a curse. God forbid, but they do. And I want to talk to you about what's happening now and how people are politicizing, spinning Charlie Kirk's murder to go after Israel and move the right against Israel. But before I do, I just have to say how disgraceful it is. And I want to show you at the end Charlie Kirk's pastor, who has gone out public now and sent a message to Candace Owens. And I'll show you what he said in a moment once we go through some of this stuff. But I just have to say that, someone was saying to me, what's going to happen now? Candace in some ways is less problematic than people like Tucker Carlson, who seem more respectable, who are still kind of seen within the fold, who Josh Hammer said to me in an interview I did with him just yesterday, which I highly recommend all of you to watch on JTV, where he spoke about Charlie and how he was, the night before Charlie's murder, was prepping the best Israel arguments with Charlie. So do watch that if you haven't seen it already. But he called Tucker Carlson the most dangerous anti-Semite in America, possibly in the world, because he cloaks it in the veneer of, I'm just asking questions. I like Israel. I go on holiday there, but I mean, can't we ask questions about all these disgraceful things that Israel's doing? And he then ends up getting to a point where he's, just in case you haven't seen, basically saying Hamas aren't radical Islamists. Maybe Churchill had guests on talking about how Churchill was the villain, how maybe the world would have been better off if Hitler had won. I mean, I kid you not. But regardless of all of that, I was talking to a friend about what is it that we can actually do? What can we do? Because if people from other sides now start to close in more and there starts to be a greater coalition against Israel and the Jews, I say, first of all, let's not be fatalistic about this, because there are many people who love Israel and support Israel. And number two, I think we have to continue sharing the truth and speaking the truth. That's all we can do. Will it change minds? Will it turn the tide? I don't know, but that is all we can do. You protect your peoples from a security standpoint, you advocate for the change you want to see, and you tell the truth, and then the rest, that's up to the rest of the world. And to be honest, if you feel so alarmed with, what could be with Israel and the Jews, I would feel much more alarmed for the rest of the world, for their souls. To go against Israel in their time of need, to turn on Israel, how could you live with yourself? To turn on God. So I say it's for the world really to decide how they wish to be, who they want to be. We know that Israel is going to be okay. But the most important question in life isn't actually, are you okay? It's, have you chosen good? Do you speak good? And so that's something I think we have to comfort ourselves with at this moment. We speak the truth. And for those who listen, great. And for those who don't, you will self-destruct ultimately if you go down a path of lies. In the end, we have to know that in our hearts. Ian Chong wrote, basically what's been going on at the moment is Candace Owens is trying to suggest, and Tucker Carlson has been kind of doing nods and a winks to this, less explicitly, but giving nods and a winks to this, to suggest that Israel was behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Do you seriously mean to tell me, genuine question, that Israel would risk? First of all, why start with Charlie? Why not start with Candace? Why not start with all the people that genuinely hate Israel? Charlie was a massive defender of Israel, confirmed by Josh Hammer, who said on this interview that he was having a conversation prepping Israel arguments the night before his campus tour on the day he was killed. And so I genuinely think that it is ridiculous beyond any possible realm of sanity to say that Israel would consider it a useful move, even if Charlie was somewhat critical of Israel. In some ways, that's quite strategically beneficial, because Charlie could show he's in Israel's pocket. Sorry, to show that he's not in Israel's pocket. And so I asked this other question, which is, you really mean to tell me that Israel would try and pull off this assassination, and then they'd risk a war with America? Because if America found out, I can assure you now, that would mean war. Are you seriously telling me that Israel wants to risk war with America? Because that's what it would lead to. It is utterly, utterly deranged, insane. But she's suggesting that, and she's suggesting that Charlie's had these donors that were trying to, were yelling at him and telling him he has to change. They were she called it like he was facing a intervention. By the way, I do have to ask the question, which is that if Candace was such a close friend of Charlie's, why is she not speaking at this memorial that's taking place this weekend in Arizona? You've got this long lineup of people, but we don't have Candace there. That's interesting. Charlie, I can assure you, would have been horrified by anti-Semitism. But anyway, she's trying to suggest that Bill Ackman was somehow at this event last month in August, trying to corner Charlie and push him and just very angrily say you've got to change or else basically. So Ian Chong's written, Candace Owens has officially broken the sound barrier of conspiracy. It's not enough to hint or just ask questions. She's shamelessly insinuating that Charlie Kirk was murdered by the Jews so they could seize Turning Point USA. And the proof, her common sense. That's it. No evidence, no sources, just the same trust me everyone is telling me privately routine she always pulls. And remember, this is the same Candace who claimed Jews are demonic, that Joseph Mengeler's death camp experiments might have been propaganda, that rabbis are literally paying pastors to take her down. She even revives some 18th century Frankist fan fiction and presents it like a smoking gun. Now she wants you to believe those same Jews orchestrated Kirk's killing with the help of the FBI and a random gay leftist, and somehow every single person around Kirk is being controlled like a marionette to lie about her. She has even accused me of being paid by these same secretive Jews, if only. It's almost impressive. She's managed to recycle every anti-Semitic trope in the book and turn Charlie's death into her own personal protocols of the elders of TPUSA. It would be almost amusing if she wasn't dragging a good man's name through the mud when he can't even refute her. It's sick. This is someone who was so close to Charlie. I've had many interactions with Charlie and Candace together. I know that they were a team and they worked well together. And of course, there was a divergence a few years ago going down different paths. And by the way, it's not for nothing that Charlie stopped having her speak at events. Okay? Now, she believed that, I'm talking about Turning Point events. She believed that Charlie Kirk was about to turn on Israel. Again, the Josh Hammer thing proves that is utter nonsense. The guy who did this also confessed. He was a trans activist, a progressive activist, but that's clearly not enough for Candace.
Okay, I can tell you that. You're either going to take being kicked in the chest, okay, and told get out, and then suddenly they're all communicating behind your back, and just where he talks about that article, something goes out and suddenly it's like, what's going on? They're like trying to make you think you're going crazy because you're saying some sensible stuff. Charlie was at that moment. He says that he is receiving messages calling him an anti-Semite. So how can you lie right now and dispute it? And better question, why are you lying? I don't like little lies. I'm being contacted by a lot of people that are telling me that just within 48 hours before Charlie passed away, his top Jewish donors were pulling funding from him, demanding that Charlie take their name off of the building that they had donated to Turning Point. I guess I can figure out who that is, how many people could have donated the building. And then once Charlie was killed, they said, never mind, put it back on the building. Okay. Charlie himself had alluded to a tremendous loss of money coming in. And we'll speak about that more. More people are going to come out with information.
Let's be clear. It may well be the case. That Charlie had some people who didn't like the fact that he was critical of Israel. That doesn't mean Israel assassinated him. That's where it gets utterly ridiculous. And again, why was he prepping with Josh Hammer beforehand? He's an independent person. You know what? Half of Israel disagrees with what the Israeli government's done, and they're not anti-Semites. And for those who may have called Charlie an anti-Semite for that, as Charlie himself said, he said, if I'm generous, I understand that the Jewish people feel extremely vulnerable. And they know how much hostility is, how much lies there are. And so they're extremely nervous. So the huge figure who has created a coalition of support for Israel starts to become critical publicly. They're going to get antsy. And it's a trauma response. Okay? And listen, by the way, I might not have agreed with some of Charlie's critiques of Israel. I would have thought they're a bit unfair. But obviously the anti-Semite thing is utterly ridiculous. But Charlie Kirk himself said, if I'm generous, that's how I see it. And he acknowledged plenty of Jews don't call him that and don't say that. The point is, he was a friend who was occasionally critical, which is what normal friends do as well, by the way. But the narrative that therefore that means Israel does it when there's no evidence. And so many of Charlie Kirk's close friends have been saying, it's this is getting really, really painful that people are politicizing this and talking about this right now. It's just so unholy. Andrew Colvett, another guy I know personally, who was basically Charlie's spokesman, producer, his right-hand man. Right-hand man. He said, I've been asked about the Bill Ackman event more than a few times now, so I asked our staff who were travelling with Charlie to find out what's true and what's not. His team was with him 100% of the time when he wasn't in his hotel room. Here's what they told me. Bill never yelled at Charlie, never pressed him on BB, never gave him a list of Charlie's offences against Israel. There was concern raised about having Tucker Carlson at SAS. We don't believe this came from Bill. And Charlie's reply was, honestly, people telling me not to have Tucker makes me want to have Tucker. Charlie was trying to build and contain a coalition, which again is what Josh Hammond describes in our interview that we did yesterday. He said, Charlie personally told me he had a very cordial relationship with Bill and the event was productive. Those are the facts. For what it's worth, I spoke to all 3 team members, not counting security, who were with him because I wanted to make sure one person hadn't missed the alleged incident. You should know, by the way, that if we go to Bill Ackman's page, he said, a few facts, corrections, and receipts to dispel some misinformation. The Turning Point USA Hamptons event was not held at my house, but rather at a hotel in Bridgehampton. As I previously explained, I did cover the cost of the event, travel, food, and lodging for participants. It was not a secret event. No one signed an NDA. Everyone, including the Turning Point representatives who attended, are totally free to share whatever they want about what took place and what was discussed. This was not a Chatham House rules event. Some have already publicly shared their experiences and perspectives on the convening. In the spirit of transparency, I encourage any of the other attendees that have not already shared their thoughts on the event to do so. That said, I understand why some may not want to do so because of the fear of getting attacked by the mob who assume that something untoward took place. I'm sure there are some Israel supporters of Turning Point who became upset with Charlie because he told me so. He complained to me that some pro-Israel advocates view any criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic, and we both agree that that is wrong. As do I. I did not complain to Charlie about Tucker Carlson's criticism of me at Turning Point. I did ask him why he thought Tucker attacked me, and he told me that he did not know why. He told me he thought any statement in response to Tucker was a great one. It can be found here. I've been reluctant to post private text, but in an effort to put this whole thing to bed, I share the following brief exchange with Charlie. And when reading this text exchange, ask yourself whether Charlie sounds like someone who I threatened, blackmailed, and or was the subject of an intervention about Israel or otherwise. Let's look at the text. Charlie, how are you? I'm doing great, Charlie said. Really enjoyed our time together last week. Thank you again for doing it. It was great, Bill said, and great to get to know you better. We should do dinner sometime with the ladies. Charlie says, absolutely, that would be awesome. Let me know when you will be in NYC and we'll have you over. Thank you, I will. We are there a few times as full. Great, just let me know. Bill finished. He said, lastly, I totally understand the shock and distress that all who knew or followed Charlie Kirk are feeling after this untimely and tragic death, but let's not let these emotions cause us to construct conspiracy theories that can cause innocent people serious and potentially deadly harm. One tragic and devastating loss is enough. And by the way, Bill, of course, is probably referring to himself as a potential target. God forbid. Seth Dillon, who I think is the creator of the Babylon Bee, he said, on July 8th, I got a text from Charlie Kirk inviting me to an influencer retreat. The theme was Save the West. I told him I was available and would see him there. Very little information was provided, but it was a Turning Point event spearheaded by Charlie, so I assumed correctly there'd be some good people and a great program. The retreat took place in the Hamptons on August 4th and 5th. At least 30 people attended. I only knew a handful of them personally. An itinerary was provided when we arrived. There were meals and themed sessions covering topics like American identity, immigration, economics, and foreign policy. Charlie stood at the front of the room. He would speak a little, then open the floor for discussion. He drove the discussion with challenging questions and there was spirited debate. If there were private meetings that took place, I wasn't in them. If there were angry confrontations, threats or coercion, I didn't witness or hear about any of it. Should evidence of such things come to light, it will be news to me. One concern Charlie raised, which I believe he also raised publicly, was about free speech. He felt that criticism of Israel was so discouraged, so penalised, that we aren't really free to voice it. Some in the room agreed with him. I argued that while it can come at a cost in certain contexts, it also pays pretty handsomely in others. Very good point indeed. There are people who have generated massive audiences and engagement by doing little other than criticising Israel and Jews. I pointed out that in my case, it was criticising the critics that had come at high cost. Indeed, prominent figures on the right now have me in their crosshairs as an enemy who must be destroyed. That I'm in a position where I feel the need to write this post and clear my name of any wrongdoing is only further evidence of this. By the way, I really want to get in touch with Seth Dillon. I'd love to interview him. If anyone knows how I can get to him, please do let me know. After the retreat, I sent Charlie a text to let him know it meant a lot that he wanted me there. He replied, "Of course, I'm here for you." I responded, "Same." He then shared a verse from scripture that has been on my mind ever since his senseless murder. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in time of trouble. I did not organise or participate in an intervention with Charlie. I was there at his personal request. I did not coerce him or threaten him or pressure him or witness anyone else do any of these things. We spent 2 days hearing from our friend, both his concerns and his wisdom, and he took time to listen to and encourage each of us. He welcomed our feedback and debate. That's why we were there. I also didn't place any calls to try and stop anything from being published or publicised. On the contrary, Charlie's team reached out to me yesterday and told me not to respond to any inquiries about the retreats because they were being made in bad faith. They said these people have no intentions during a time while we mourn our friend. It's so sick. This whole thing is sick to the core. They also apologised to me that I was being dragged into this and said that they were doing what they could to put false rumours and allegations to rest. I thanked them and told them I was sorry they were having to deal with it too. I'm sick with grief over the loss of my friend. And by the way, I have to tell you, for me as well, I feel disgusting that I'm having to talk about all these political points at a time of grief for Charlie's family and his friends and everyone who knew him, and so much of the world who valued him. But we're not starting this. People like Candace and others are starting this. And so out of duty to the truth, and frankly, to Charlie himself and his memory and his legacy, we feel the need to have to come out and say the truth. I'm sick with grief over the loss of my friend, and that sadness is compounded by the fact that instead of honouring Charlie and his legacy, his name is being exploited to generate controversy, confusion, and conspiracies. Shame on you, Candace Owens. Shame on you. My heart breaks for everyone involved whose integrity and affection for Charlie are being called into question. I'm sure there will be responses to this that accuse me of dishonesty. I note in advance that they'll be coming from notoriously dishonest people. I've also attached screenshots of correspondence with Charlie and his team to support what I've said here. The fact that any of this is necessary is a disgrace. That is absolutely right, and Xavier de Rousseau also wrote something about this, which I'll share with you quickly. Clearing the air regarding the Hamptons trip with Charlie Kirk and Bill Ackman. What's true? Dozens of influencers, including myself, were invited to an event by Charlie and his team, not by Bill Ackman. Charlie wanted to get to know rising conservative voices and where we stood on various issues. 2. The subject matters were primarily about the following topic: Islam's growing presence in the West, marriage and dating, Mamdani, right-wing infighting, the economy, and various narratives regarding Israel. Charlie wanted to see us respectfully debate among each other. There are a range of views on every topic. He wanted to learn our perspectives and analysed our debating skills from an objective point of view. I'm going to skip this one bit because it's just a little bit irrelevant. Bill and Charlie never debated or argued. I don't know where that narrative came from. If it happened, it certainly wasn't around any of us. Bill mostly spoke about marriage and economics, then chilled with us. I'm not going to pretend to know every thought of Charlie's, but he very much stood with Israel. His frustrations expressed during the Hamptons event were that many people debated the topic emotionally rather than logically. Mind you, this was a small portion of the event. When Max Blumenthal from Grey Zone, which I never heard of until he contacted me, that's also, I don't know that bit about. And then lastly, nothing about the Hamptons trip was an intervention. Charlie designed the event and led it as a chance to listen to all of us and spark conversation in a way only he could. We were encouraged to keep using our voices and fight for what we believe in, regardless of where we fell on various issues. That's exactly who Charlie Kirk was, and my last memories with him in the Hamptons are something I will always, always cherish. But you know, the thing that I found the most powerful here is Rob McCoy, who posted this. And this, to me, gets to the heart of it all. The heart of what I'm feeling right now. Rob McCoy is Charlie Kirk's evangelical pastor. And by the way, Candace and others are trying to suggest that Charlie was going to become a Catholic. He said that recently, I think I even heard him say it on the day of his campus tour when he was killed, that he is an evangelical. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check that for you, actually. In fact, let's have a quick look. Yeah, Candace trying to say that Charlie was going to become a Catholic. You've got to understand, part of the undertone reason for that is because the evangelicals are religiously devoted in a way to supporting Israel in a way that you don't quite see with Catholics. So that's why she's trying to push that narrative. Yeah, have a look at this. Raw footage someone took on the day that he was murdered.
Nice day, everybody. I'm an evangelical Christian. We're going to have fun with this, but I'm not one of those guys that hates on Mormons.
So there you go. There you have it, said in black and white on the day of Charlie's assassination. But I want to get to the crux of this, because Rob McCoy, his pastor, said the following. Okay? And he's not someone to, as far as I understand, get so involved in these kinds of spats. Charlie Kirk was my friend, and I was his pastor. I want to simply say this regarding Candace Owens. Charlie Kirk was a friend to Candace and never publicly spoke poorly of her, though he disagreed with her. He never operated nor entertained gossip or innuendo concerning Candace. My only comment I offer regarding Candace is this. I only wish at this tragic time of mourning she would be the friend to Charlie that he was to her. He would never have treated Candace or her family in such a way had, God forbid, this tragedy been hers. A friend loves at all times. Proverbs 17:17. That is exactly right. And that summarizes it all, really. And Charlie, from what I understand, spoke to his pastor regularly, then brought him to events and things like that. So this, for me, makes me think of two things. The first thing is that the derangement of Jew hatred, even if it's utterly self-destructive and self-exposing. You should know that Hitler, in his last radio address, when Berlin, the Allies were closing in on Berlin, and it was all over for him, he said, I implore the Germans still to uphold the racial laws to their the strictness of the law. I mean, it's all crashing down, and he still is fighting for that, to kill the Jews and to have racial purity. And you should know, in the final months before the war ended, he had a decision to make. Is he going to use the trains on the Eastern Front to send more troops to the Eastern Front? Or is he going to use those very train tracks to get more Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz? We all know what would have made more military sense for self-preservation. He chose to send the Jews to their deaths. Okay, anti-Semitism is a deeply metaphysical hatred that transcends sense. It comes down to an opposition to who Israel is. And this brings me to my second point. We need to know as Jews who we are. As the storm clouds rise, and again, I think it's unclear which way things are heading. And frankly, the big question for the world is, what's going to be their moral character in this great battle? But for us as Jews, we need to know that God keeps his promise to the people of Israel, and all he asks of us is that we continue to keep our promise to him, to keep our covenant with him, to share that with the world. And in doing so, that is what will ultimately bring about the blessing that Israel is meant to be to the world. The world, I think, is ready to hear it, but not just ready to hear it, needs to hear it. And so I say to you quite simply, do not fear. Let's do it. A quick message before we finish. We have been lied to about the Palestinians from beginning till end. Have a watch of the trailer for our new documentary called The Invention of the Palestinians, How a Nation Was Invented to Destroy Another. And if you want to watch the full thing, just click on the link in the video description. The Palestinians. We have been told they are an ancient people fighting for their homeland which has been stolen from them. This narrative has fueled decades of conflict, painting Israel as an occupier of stolen land. But what if this identity is not of an ancient nation, but a modern, cynical invention? A political construct designed not to build a state, but to dismantle the Jewish one. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the truth behind the creation of the Palestinian identity. How it was forged in the fires of pan-Arabism, absent in historical records until strategically rebranded in the 1960s by leaders like Egyptian-born Yasser Arafat to rally global opposition against Israel. We'll trace its roots from the Ottoman era, where Palestine was a region without a distinct people, through the pre-1948 years of Arab rejectionism, before focusing on the pivotal shift of the 1960s, when Arafat declared we should now be known as Palestinians, inventing symbols like the flag to mask genocidal aims. This wasn't about self-determination, it was about exploiting refugees. suppressing true aspirations under Arab rule, and perpetuating a war to destroy Israel. Join us as we debunk the myths of an ancient Palestinian nation, expose the strategic manipulation, and reveal how this construct has hindered peace while fueling hate. Fair but firm, this is the story of an identity weaponized not for building a future, but for erasing one. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.